Chapter 2992. Fengjiu said leisurely. With a flick of her sleeve, she collected all the Qinkuan pouches and entered the spirit deer carriage. Let's go back. Don't tarry for too long. Elder May drove the carriage back. On the way back, he asked, "Young miss, aren't you proficient in medicine? What kind of illness can't be exposed to sunlight?" Inside the carriage, Fengjiu's eyes flickered. She asked, "Who told you I'm proficient in medicine?" The old man outside paused for a moment, then said, "Those who know about alchemy also know a bit about medicine. You're a venerable alchemist, so your medical skills must be very high." Fengjiu didn't say anything. She just closed her eyes and rested. When they returned to the residence, she handed the Qinkuan pouches to Leng Hua. "Sort these things out." Leng Hua took the Qinkuan pouches and looked at them. After he agreed and saw her go in, he went to the old man outside and asked, "What happened when you went out? How did you get these Qinkuan pouches?" "Hee, let me tell you, your master is a bandit. He robbed a lot of things when he went out. No wonder he has money without doing anything." The old man sighed softly. He glanced at the Qinkuan pouches in Leng Hua's arms and said, "Do you need this old man to help you distribute them? Just give me a few gold coins and I'll go get some wine." Leng Hua glanced at him and asked, "Is 1.5 caddies of wine not enough for you?" "AI, it's hard to say. Sometimes I want to drink more. Sometimes I drink less. Keep some for when I want to drink. Drinking too much wine is bad for the body." As Leng Hua spoke, he put away the Qinkuan pouches and took out 2 sets of clothes from his space. "These are for you. Go back and try to see if they fit. If they don't, I'll have someone change them for you." As he spoke, he handed the clothes to him and left. Looking at the clothes and boots in his hand, Measure was slightly startled. He closed his eyes and stood quietly for a while. Finally, he put the clothes away and turned around to return to the courtyard. The next day, CK and Mu Xian arrived at the mansion. When they saw the mansion, Mu Xian glanced at C. Quebec. "Master and the others live here. This place looks pretty good. For Square City is a precious land. Even if you have the money, you might not be able to buy a house here." As CK spoke, he clasped his hands behind his back and looked ahead. "I wonder why Master has summoned us here. We're already here. Won't we know once we go in?" As Mu Xian spoke, she went forward and knocked on the door. Not long after, a drunk old man opened the door and looked outside. "Who is it? Who are you looking for?" Elder May glanced at the 2 people outside and asked. Looking at the drunk and sleepy old man, CK and Mu Xian looked at each other and said, "We're CK and Mu Xian from the Immortal Sect. We're here too." Before they could finish their words, the door closed with a bang. The 2 of them were stunned and didn't react for a long time. After the door closed, Elder May was also stunned. He took a sip of wine from the wine pot at his waist and smacked his lips. "Who are you talking about? CK and Mu Xian from the Immortal Sect? Why does it sound so familiar?" He stroked his beard. Suddenly, he sobered up. "CK and Mu Xian from the Immortal Sect? Aren't they the 2 venerables from the Immortal Sect who became Fengjiu's disciples?" Chapter 2993. The 2 of them glanced at Elder May and asked, "Is our master home?" Yes. She's home every day. I'll bring you in," Elder May said with a smile. After letting them in, he closed the door behind them and led them to the front hall. Take a seat and rest. I'll go invite her over." As Meisha spoke, she asked them to take a seat and went outside to ask the servants to serve tea. Only then did she walk towards Fengjiu's courtyard. When Leng Hua walked towards the front yard, he saw a servant girl carrying tea. When he heard that a guest had come to the residence and that the guest was his master's disciple, he took the tea from the servant girl and personally brought it to the front hall. When he arrived at the front hall, he saw 2 middle-aged men sitting inside. Both of them were dressed in gray and looked inconspicuous. However, the aura they exuded was not to be ignored. "Have a cup of tea first." Leng Hua smiled as he served them tea. At the same time, he sized them up discreetly. When CK and Mu Xian saw a young man enter, they couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Their gazes fell on Leng Hua and sized him up for a while. Regardless of whether it was his temperament, appearance, or strength, he was outstanding. They asked, "What's your name?" "My name is Leng Hua." he said gently. He then added, I'm the residence's housekeeper. Hearing this, the two of them's eyes flickered. Housekeeper? He came to the residence to be their housekeeper at such a young age? When the two of them saw that their master hadn't arrived yet, they followed Lung Hua into the hall and chatted. In the backyard, Feng Jiu was concocting medicine and conducting experiments. Elder Mei quickly walked in and shouted, Young miss, there are two people in front. One said that they're CK and the other said that they're Mu Xian. They're looking for their master. Feng Jiu was busy with his work. He didn't even raise his head as he said, Let them sit for a while. I'll be there when I'm done. Meija stuck her head out and looked. She didn't leave. Instead, she asked curiously, What are these things? Try them and you'll know. Hearing her words, Elder Mei couldn't help but take a sniff out of curiosity. Seeing that there were some colorful medicinal pills on the side, he asked, What kind of medicinal pills are these? Why is the color so strange? He didn't hear any sounds of her refining pills when he was in the residence. So there should be some small things, right? Was it sugar? Or was it medicine? Or was it poison? As he thought about it, he couldn't help but pick one up to take a look. After studying it for a long time, he still couldn't figure out what it was. However, the medicinal fragrance was very fragrant. At this time, while he was studying the pill, he suddenly stepped on something and slipped. His entire body fell backwards, and the pill in his hand flew into the air. As he cried out in alarm, it flew into the air and fell into his mouth. Yes, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and his eyes widened. He clutched his neck with both hands as if he wanted to cough out the pill. Feng Jiu, who was at the side, was slightly stunned. He couldn't help but chuckle. I didn't know you were so eager to help me test the medicine. Elder Mei swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He felt that the pill had already dissolved. He couldn't help but ask anxiously, Miss, what kind of medicine did I just take? What's the use of it? How would I know what kind of medicine you took? I didn't even pay attention to it. Feng Jiu said innocently. She looked at him and smiled. Besides, these are all newly refined medicinal pills. Their levels are relatively low. I didn't even have the time to test them. I don't even know what those medicinal pills are used for. Chapter 2994. It's not poison. Don't worry. It's just medicine. As for what kind of effect it has, you'll find out in a moment. She chuckled as she sorted the pills according to their color. Hearing this, Elder Mei faintly felt a trace of unease. I only smelled it, and I only got a little bit of the medicinal foam. It shouldn't be a problem, right? It won't harm your life. You can rest assured about that. Feng Jiu chuckled as she stood up. She looked at the old man and gently brushed off the medicine that had accidentally gotten on her clothes. She then walked out. I'll go take a look first. You can go back and rest. When the medicine takes effect later, just let me know. Elder Mei swallowed his saliva when he heard this. Even she didn't know the effects of these pills? Then what exactly was she up to? When he thought about how he had swallowed those pills himself, he felt as if he had been forced to swallow them in silence. He returned to his room with apprehension. Rather than waiting for the medicine to take effect slowly, he thought that it would be better to stimulate the spiritual power in his body so that the pill would take effect as soon as possible. He wanted to see what this thing was. On the other side, Feng Jiu walked into the front hall, and the three people in the hall stood up. Master, Lung Hua called out, then retreated to the side. Disciples greet Master. CK and Mu Xian stepped forward and bowed as they looked at her. Have a seat. She gestured for them to sit down, then walked to the main seat. Lung Hua retreated, but not long after, he returned. He poured a cup of tea for her, then stood quietly to the side. Master, are you used to living here? Did the aristocratic families in the city make things difficult for you? CK asked with concern. In her heart, she was wondering why Master had called them here. Could it be that she had something to tell them? It's all right. As Feng Jiu spoke, her gaze fell on the two of them. With a turn of her hand, she took out 2 pills and had Lung Hua pass them to them. The two of them were stunned for a moment. They were a little surprised. Master, this is the 9 transformations golden pill that I refined by adding the 1,000-year snow Ganoderma. I'll give one to each of you. This 9 transformation golden pill can bring the dead back to life no matter how serious the injury or the poison is. It can even bring a dead person back to life if they take it. However, it can only be used by people who have just died not long ago. If it is used by people who have died many times, it will be useless. Hearing this, the two of them couldn't help but be shocked. Their hands holding the pill trembled as they exclaimed, This 9 revolutions golden pill can bring the dead back to life. Fengjiu glanced at them and took a sip of her tea. She said neither hurriedly nor slowly, if they were killed directly, then they can't be saved. However, if they were seriously injured and died, as long as their body temperature is still there, taking this pill can restore their life force. This is an extremely precious pill that can bring the dead back to life. That's why I used a black seal on the outside of the pill. This way, the medicinal fragrance and medicinal properties of the pill won't be lost. Even if it comes in contact with water, it won't be diluted. Keep these 2 pills to yourselves. Don't let your immortal sect members know about them. The two of them stood up and said solemnly, Don't worry, Master. We'll definitely treasure these pills. Chapter 2995. Master. Actually, other than being summoned by Master, we also came here because there's something else we want to tell Master. As the two spoke, they returned to their seats and sat down. They put away the pills, and their expressions became serious. Fengjiu glanced at them and asked, What is it? Speak. The two paused for a moment and looked at each other. Mu Xan nudged CK and gestured for him to speak. She sat upright and took a few sips of tea to calm herself down. The two of them had only been apprenticed to Master for a short time and hadn't been filial to her. They didn't expect their Master to prepare such precious pills for them. It had to be said that this was a great shock to them. How many years had it been? How many years had it been since someone had done this for them? One had to know that they were supremacies in the immortal sect and patriarchs in their families. They were the only ones who cared about the immortal sect and their families. Very few people would think of doing anything for them. CK glanced at Mu Xian and cursed in his heart. This old thing. Every time she pushes me to do something, she just hides in a corner and drinks tea. He cleared his throat and looked at Fengjiu before saying, It's like this. Wanyan Xianhua went missing after accepting a mission from the immortal sect. Her master couldn't get in touch with her and guessed that something might have happened to her. Although it hasn't been confirmed, the news has spread among the supremacies in the immortal sect. We thought about the relationship between Wanyan Xianhua and Master, so we wanted to tell Master about this news first. Hearing this, Fengjiu frowned slightly. Lost contact? Was the mission she accepted very dangerous? Where did she go? How could she have lost contact? How did you know that something had happened to her? Every immortal sect disciple has a life jade token. 2 days ago, her life jade token was dim and dark. In addition, we couldn't contact her, and when she was supposed to return, there was no sign of her. Thus, we deduced that she might have encountered some danger outside. CK continued, When we went down a mountain, we asked around and found out that her mission this time was to go to a remote village to collect ghosts. For her, there shouldn't be any accidents on this mission, but it's also possible that she encountered something else. Hearing this, Fengjiu pondered for a moment, then said, Give me the location of her mission, the last place she was at when she went missing, and some related information. She paused, then said, All right, also information about her family here. As soon as she said this, CK and Mu Xian looked at her at the same time. What does Master want those for? Could it be what they were thinking? She's my sworn sister. Now that something has happened to her, I naturally can't just stand by and watch. You can stay here for the night. After you have sorted out the information, give it to me. But the place for ghosts is definitely gloomy. Master is different from Wanyan Xianhua. She's a member of the Ghost Clan and is not afraid of ghosts. But if it is Master, I'm afraid. They couldn't help but worry. Women were of the Yin attribute. If she went to a gloomy place, she might not be able to use her strength no matter how strong she was. It's fine. Fengjiu waved her hand, indicating that it was fine. Seeing this, the two sighed. If they had known, they wouldn't have said anything. But if they didn't say anything, Master would blame them if she found out in the future. But if something happened to Master on this trip, they would also be blamed. Chapter 2996. Fengju looked at him. Venerable Snow Jade has already contacted the Wanyin family. It said that the family has already sent someone over. This person is Wanyin Xianhua's 13th uncle. This person's abilities are not to be underestimated. If we can travel with him, we can at least be more at ease. Fengjiu thought for a moment, then said, "That's fine. Then you two can make the arrangements." "Yes." The two of them replied and heaved a sigh of relief. Leng Hua arranged for the two of them to stay in the residence. The two of them stayed for a day and sorted out some information before handing it to Fengjiu. The next day, they left, saying that they wanted to return to the Immortal Sect to see if there was any news about Wanyin Shisan. On this day, Fengjiu was playing with little Hao in the garden and teaching him how to walk. She suddenly thought of something and exclaimed, "Leng Hua, I haven't seen Elder Mei for the past 2 days. I haven't seen him. He's been cooped up in his room for the past 2 days." Leng Hua said, then asked, "Is Mistress looking for him? I'll go get him." Fengjiu smiled and said, "That day, he accidentally ate one of my elixirs. I concocted it and haven't tested it yet. I don't know what it does." She smiled and picked up little Hao. "Let's go take a look. Let's see what kind of elixir it is that he won't even leave his room." And so, she carried little Hao, followed by Leng Hua, and walked towards Elder Mei's courtyard. At this moment, Elder Mei was sitting on the edge of the bed with a mournful look on his face as he touched his bald head. In just one night, all of his hair had fallen off. Moreover, it was as smooth as a mirror and felt slippery to the touch. He picked up the mirror beside the bed and looked at it. The old man in the mirror had a bald head and looked very strange. Seeing this, he couldn't help but slap his hand. "Who told you to be so nosy? Who told you to be nosy? Now I'm bald. How am I supposed to go out and meet people? My lifetime of brilliance is ruined just like that." Just as he was mumbling to himself, he heard footsteps coming from outside. He immediately jumped off the bed and ran to the window to take a look. What he saw made him anxious. "Why are they here? I'm like this. He anxiously walked around the room, looking for something. Finally, he took a piece of clothing and wrapped it around his head. "Elder Mei, why didn't you go out? Why are you hiding inside?" Fengjiu asked as he entered the courtyard. "Miss, why are you here? Why are you looking for me?" Elder Mei asked from inside. "I'm here to check on you. Come out. Since you ate my pill, you should at least show me the effects of that pill." Fengjiu sat down by the stone table in the courtyard and played with the giggling little Hao. Listening to the voices outside, Elder Mei sighed softly. Then he opened the door and walked out. When he arrived outside, he saw that the child was there as well. He walked up to her and said, "This is how it is. Look." He pointed at his head, which was wrapped in his clothes. "Why are you wrapping your head in clothing?" Fengjiu was slightly surprised. "Don't tell me you've lost all your hair." Hearing that, Elder Mei pursed his lips and took off the clothes that were wrapped around his head. He said unhappily, "Isn't that right? Look, it's already so shiny, yet it's still so slippery. How embarrassing." Chapter 2997. Yeah. He. The little guy waved his little hands in Fengjiu's arms, his eyes sparkling as he looked at the bald Elder Mei. He leaned forward, wanting to touch his head. Fengjiu saw this and waved his hand. Come closer." Elder Mei went forward and looked at little Hao with a smile. "Kid, let me hug you, okay?" "Yeah, he. Little Hao laughed happily and hugged Elder Mei's bald head with his 2 little hands. Elder Mei couldn't help but smile when he saw how much the little guy liked his bald head. He suddenly felt that there was nothing wrong with being bald. Fengjiu handed little Hao over. Elder Mei was stunned and a little excited. I can hug him. You really want me to hug you?" "Go ahead. Didn't you want to hug him?" Fengjiu said and gestured for him to take it. Seeing this, Elder Mei swallowed his saliva and wiped his hands on his body. Only then did he reach out and carefully carry the child over. Hugging the child's soft body, he could not help but chuckle. While weighing the child's weight, he said with a smile, "You're so good looking. One look, and I can tell that you're blessed. This weight is not light at all. He'll definitely be tall in the future." Leng Shuang and Leng Hua watched from the side. Their eyes flickered but they didn't say anything. Feng Jiu was watching as well. She watched old Mei's actions, his expression, and the look in his eyes. She rested her cheek on her hand and said in a seemingly casual manner, "Isn't he blessed? If he hadn't met me back then and I hadn't raised him as my son, I'm afraid he would have been fed to those beasts." Elder Mei, who was carrying the child, tightened his grip. He looked at the giggling child in his arms and said with pity, "That's right. This child isn't fated to die. Otherwise, he wouldn't have met you guys." "Ha ha. Yeah." The little guy seemed to know that he was being talked about. He giggled and kept making yee-yee sounds. "Elder Mei, I'll probably be out for a while, and I won't be back for a while. Mose is in seclusion now, and the rest of the people in the mansion are also out on missions. Only Lung Hua and Lung Shuang are left. I'll have to trouble you to take care of them when I'm not around, especially Hao. When Elder Mei heard this, he looked at her. "Miss, are you going out?" "Yes, one of my sworn sisters has gone missing. I have to go and see what's going on." She spoke slowly and looked at him, asking, "If I leave the manor to you to guard, will you agree?" Hearing that, Old Mei gave her a deep look and said, "Don't worry. I will guard this mansion and won't let anything happen to them. Once you are outside, you don't have to worry about the mansion." Feng Jiu smiled. "Okay, I'm relieved to hear that." She nodded and stood up. "I have to go back and prepare some things. As for your hair, I'll see if it's long. If it's not long, I'll make some medicine for you." Elder Mei smiled and said, "It's okay. This little guy likes to touch my bald head. It doesn't matter if it's long or not. You guys have seen my image anyway, so I don't care anymore." "Okay," Feng Jiu said and looked at Lung Shuang. "Hao should eat something too. You can carry him back and feed him." Chapter 2998. Feng Jiu turned and left. Lung Shuang followed with the child in his arms. Lung Hua trailed half a step behind and said to Elder Mei, "There's food in the kitchen. If you're hungry, go take a look." With that, he left as well. Elder Mei watched them leave. He rubbed his bald head, then looked down at himself. He casually cast a dust-cleansing spell, and he looked like a brand-new person from head to toe. He stroked his beard and smiled, then walked out. He was going to the kitchen to see if there was anything he could fill his stomach with. For someone of his cultivation level, it didn't matter if he ate or not. He didn't know how many years he had been fasting. For cultivators, eating was just to satisfy their hunger. Of course, if it was spirit rice or beast meat, it was a different story. However, when he thought of what Feng Jiu had said to him, he couldn't help but wonder, did she see through me? That's why she dared to entrust me with such a task. On the other side, Feng Jiu returned to the courtyard. Lung Shuang and Lung Hua also came. When they entered the room, they looked at each other and asked, "Master, do you know where Elder Mei came from?" Feng Jiu sat down in the room and poured himself a cup of water. He smiled and said, "I don't know where he came from, but I think I can vaguely guess why he came here. He seems to treat the little master differently." Lung Hua thought for a moment and decided to share his observations. "Yes, because he came for little Hao." Feng Jiu played with the teacup as he spoke. "If I'm not wrong, he should know about little Hao's background. He came here for little Hao." "Master, don't you need to guard against him? He's so strong. What if he takes the little master away?" Lung Shuang couldn't help but ask worriedly. Feng Jiu chuckled and shook his head. "He won't. Judging from little Hao's situation, his parents aren't doing too well either. Compared to bringing little Hao back and enduring the danger, it's better for him to stay here and protect him. Don't worry. He won't take little Hao away, at least not now. Plus, he's very strong. With him here, even if I go out, I don't have to worry about the mansion. When I'm not in the mansion, you don't have to stop him from interacting with little Hao. If he wants to carry little Hao, let him do it. Let him teach him. This will only benefit Hao." Hearing this, the two nodded. Yes. Although he agreed, Lung Hua was still somewhat worried. He asked, "Master, Elder Mei hasn't admitted it. If he didn't come for the young master and has an ulterior motive, then I know what you're worried about." Feng Jiu chuckled, glanced at the two, and said with a smile, "But you don't know, I had the Fire Phoenix keep an eye on Lung Shuang's courtyard." Although Elder Mei didn't show much during the day, and he didn't do anything out of line after entering the manor. One night, he secretly snuck into Lung Shuang's courtyard to see how her. Hearing this, Lung Shuang was slightly surprised. Elder Mei had snuck into her courtyard? She didn't even know about it. Master, Lung Shuang was careless. She felt somewhat guilty. If something had happened, it would have been too late. Chapter 2999. Based on my observations over the past few days, this person can still be trusted. She said to the two of them, however, during this period of time, don't see any other guests. If anyone asks, just say that I'm in seclusion. Yes. The two of them nodded in response. Also, if Du Fan and the others come back, tell them about this matter. Tell them to be careful when they take on missions. Don't take on missions that they aren't confident in. If they encounter something that they can't handle, they can also go to the back of the mountain to look for Mose. Don't worry, Master. If they come back, we will definitely pass on your words to them. If they encounter something that they can't handle before you return, we will ask the Yama Lord for help. Lung Hua said, you may leave. I should be going out tonight under the cover of the night. As for Ying Yi, you should also inform him. Yes. The two of them responded and left. That night, Feng Jiu quietly left in the direction of the Immortal Sect. In the Immortal Sect, she left Fire Phoenix and Lao by behind to guard the Immortal Sect. According to the time that CK had told her, she arrived at the foot of the Immortal Sect's mountain and waited. When the sky gradually brightened, she saw a figure come down from the Immortal Sect and walk towards the big tree. A girl? Wanyan Shursan glanced at Feng Jiu, who was resting on the tree. Seeing her in a red dress, with her black hair and beautiful face, he couldn't help but frown. Why did you bring me a girl? He scratched his head in annoyance and said to Feng Jiu, Little girl, you should go back. I'll go by myself. How much trouble would it take to get a girl to follow him? Those women were all delicate, and it was extremely troublesome to take care of them. Furthermore, this was an extremely beautiful woman. That was even more unbearable. Feng Jiu jumped down and stood in front of him to size him up. She found that he was very tall. She only reached his shoulders when she stood in front of him. Moreover, his body was very strong. It could be said that he had a tiger waist and a bare back. His muscles were very developed, and he was full of manliness. His face was clear, and he looked like a tough guy. Are you Wanyan Shur-san? Feng Jiu asked. She thought that her sister's family seemed to be different from her. Impudent. A little girl like you should call me 13th uncle. Wanyan Shur-san said in a deep voice. When his face darkened, it was quite scary. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled and asked, Didn't they mention me to you? They only said that there was someone who wanted to go with me and asked me to take care of him. I thought it would be a man, but it turned out to be a little girl. He frowned and said in a deep voice, A little girl is too troublesome. I'm here to do things, not to play. What's more, that kind of place is not suitable for a little girl like you to go. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled slightly. Wanyan Qianhua is my sworn sister. She is missing. I have to find her, so I must go. It's almost dawn now. Let's go. Don't waste time. Oh, you and Qianhua are sworn sisters? Wanyan Shur-san stared at her from head to toe and finally smiled. It looks a bit similar. Both of them like to wear red clothes. However, their temperaments are worlds apart. Chapter 3000. I know. It's a place with extreme negative energy. It's said that the place isn't very peaceful. My sister went there and we lost contact with her, Feng Jiu said slowly. There are ghosts in that place, and you still dare to go with me? He asked in a deep voice, his eyes sharp. Let's go. Feng Jiu didn't say much. He took the feather from his waist, threw it out, and jumped onto it. I didn't expect a little girl like you to be so affectionate. Only then did his expression soften. He took out his aircraft and threw it into the air. Then he said to Feng Jiu, Follow me. If you lose me, I won't wait for you. Feng Jiu smiled. He watched as Wanyan Shur-san flew off on his aircraft. He chased after him unhurriedly. After some distance, they also flew higher and higher, their figures disappearing into the clouds and obscuring their traces. 2 days later, they arrived at a mountain path. Seeing that the town was not far away, Wan Yin Shursen looked at Fengjiu and said, "Do you have men's clothes? Find some men's clothes and change into them. Otherwise, you'll be targeted in town." Hearing this, Fengjiu stopped in his tracks. He glanced at his red clothes and said, "Wait for me here." As he spoke, he walked towards the forest on the side of the mountain path. Wan Yin Shursen sat by the roadside, drinking water and looking around. Not long after, he saw a handsome young man in green walking over. Wan Yin Shursen glanced at him and then looked away. Who knew that the young man would walk in front of him? "What are you doing?" Was there something wrong with this young man? Why was he standing in front of him? Fengjiu, who was dressed in green and had disguised his face, raised his eyebrows and said, "It's me, Fengjiu." "Feng-jiu?" He was stunned and his eyes widened. "Fengjiu?" He stood up and looked her up and down. "You know how to disguise yourself?" She smiled. "I know a thing or two." "Good. I couldn't tell that you had some skills." He nodded and said with satisfaction, "This is good. Let's go. We've been walking on the mountain path for the past 2 days. I'll bring you town to eat something good." As he spoke, the two of them walked towards the town. However, when the two of them arrived at the town gate and were about to enter, they felt a violent tremor from the ground, as well as a burst of laughter. Some of the people who were walking towards the town heard the noise and turned back to look. They couldn't help but be shocked when they saw what was happening. One after another, they scattered to the sides. Wan Yin Shursen frowned and glanced at those young men who were riding ferocious beasts towards them. He stretched out his hand and pulled Feng Ix's collar, dragging her aside. It's like an eagle catching a chick. They were so far away. Was he afraid that she wouldn't be able to avoid them? Wan Yin Shursen glanced at her and said with disgust, "You little girl, you didn't even call me Uncle Shursen all the way. If I hadn't pulled you back, you would have been knocked away by those ferocious beasts with your slow reaction." Chapter 3001. My ball. A 5 or 6-year-old child, who was being pulled by a woman, lost his grip on the cloth ball and rolled out. He immediately broke free from the woman's hand and chased after the cloth ball with his short legs. However, he did not notice that the group of ferocious beasts were already nearing the town gate. Furthermore, they did not slow down. "Hey, Wa!" The woman cried out in alarm. Her face turned pale, and she almost ran forward to carry her son back without thinking. However, just as she was about to carry the child, the young man in the lead had already leaped onto the ferocious beast. Seeing that the ferocious beast's front hooves were about to trample on the woman who was protecting the child in her arms, the crowd gasped in alarm. Fengjiu frowned and was about to step forward, but stopped before she could take a step. Her eyes flashed as she looked at the scene in front of her. She saw the woman carrying the child and rolling under the ferocious beast's hooves to the side. It was as if someone had pushed the mother and child and helped them avoid being trampled to death. Perhaps in the eyes of others, the mother and child had been lucky enough to avoid the ferocious beast's hooves. However, in her eyes, she clearly saw 2 ghosts protecting them and pushing the mother and child to the side to avoid danger. Ghosts? Spirits? Her heart skipped a beat, and she turned to look at Wan Yin Shursen beside her. Wan Yin Shursen, who sensed her gaze, glared at her and asked exasperatedly, "What are you looking at me for? You need to reflect on yourself. If I hadn't followed you, you would have been in trouble just now." "Yes, I know. I'll reflect on myself." She smiled and replied smoothly. Hearing this, Wan Yin Shursen wanted to reprimand her, but his words were stuck in his throat, and he could only stare blankly. When did this little girl become so obedient? That mother and child are so lucky. I thought they would be trampled to death. That's right. They can survive under such circumstances. They're really lucky. If we were any slower, the ferocious beast's front hooves would have stepped on them. If that ferocious beast stepped on them, they would have died without a doubt. That's right, that's right. That was a close call. Fortunately, the mother and son were lucky and weren't destined to die. Fengjiu smiled as he listened to the words of the surrounding people and glanced at the woman who had already stood up with her child in her arms. He said to Wan Yin Shursen, who had a dark expression on his face, "Let's go to the town and see if there's anything delicious to eat." "Let's go," Wan Yin Shursen said as he strode inside. "Here, Only the footprints of the galloping beasts were left on the ground as the youths in luxurious clothes rode their ferocious beasts inside. Although the town wasn't as big as the city, it wasn't small either. When the two of them arrived, they saw that the town was bustling with activity. There were many hawkers by the roadside, and the shops on the left and right sides were also bustling with business. The two of them walked on a main street, and after 2 rounds, Wanya and Shursin walked toward a restaurant and said to Fengjiu, "This place looks pretty good. Let's eat here." Fengjiu followed him into the restaurant and found a corner seat on the first floor to sit down. She saw that he had ordered more than 10 dishes the moment he opened his mouth. She couldn't help but feel a little surprised. "Can we finish so many dishes?" There were only 2 of them. They couldn't finish more than 10 dishes, right? Chapter 3002. Fengjiu poured herself a glass of wine and watched as the dishes were served one after another. Wanyan Shursin rolled up his sleeves and began to eat. His actions were bold and unrestrained. She smiled and began to eat as well. "Do you have an enemy?" she suddenly asked. Just as she was about to put the food in her mouth, she stopped and looked at Wanyan Shursin as she asked. Wanyan Shursin, who was eating happily, heard this and said, "Who doesn't have enemies in the outside world? Why are you asking this?" As soon as he finished speaking, he saw her put down her chopsticks and look at him with a puzzled expression. He picked up another mouthful of food and asked, "What's wrong? You're not eating? Are these dishes not to your taste?" "These dishes have been drugged," Fengjiu said calmly. Cough, cough. Hearing this, he was caught off guard and choked. He quickly put down his chopsticks and wiped his mouth with his large hand. His voice raised slightly. "What did you say?" "I said these dishes have been drugged." Fengjiu continued speaking. She picked up her chopsticks and sniffed each dish before putting them back. "That's impossible. Before he could finish speaking, he felt that something was wrong with his body. In particular, his spiritual energy seemed to be flowing away, and his vision was slightly blurry. He shook his head and stared at Fengjiu. "If you knew, why didn't you remind me? I wanted to remind you, but seeing that you've eaten so much, I let it go. Anyway, it's not poison, it's just medicine," Fengjiu said with a smile. Seeing him on the verge of collapse, she flipped her palm and a pill appeared in her hand. She reached out and poured him a glass of wine. At the same time, the pill slipped from her hand into the wine. "Drink," she gestured. Seeing this, Wanyan Shursin picked up the wine glass and ate the pill. He did not ask anything and tried to activate the pill. After the pill entered his stomach along with the wine, he felt a wave of heat in his body. This wave of heat flowed through his body and gradually stabilized the spiritual energy that had been flowing away. Even his somewhat dizzy head gradually cleared up. "Waiter!" Wanyan Shursin suddenly slammed the table and shouted. This sound shook the entire floor and attracted the attention of all the guests. "Sir, what's wrong?" The waiter and the manager hurriedly ran over and asked as they comforted the other guests and told them to eat. "I won't say much. Come and eat a few mouthfuls." Wanyan Shursin stared at the two and then asked the waiter to come forward. The waiter was scared in his body when he heard that it was just to try the dishes. "Two, I told you to eat, so eat. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" He snorted loudly and his face darkened. His fierce look made the waiter not dare to say anything else. He quickly picked up his chopsticks and tried all the dishes on the table. "Sir, this dish is fine. It's delicious. What's wrong?" However, just as he finished speaking, his whole body swayed, and then he fell straight to the ground. Bang! The moment the waiter fell, the manager was frightened. What's going on?" Chapter 3003. When the shopkeeper heard this, his face turned pale. He took a step back and waved his hands. "This has nothing to do with us. This. Wanyan Shursin, don't force yourself. I specially found this medicine for you. How is it? Is the food on this table to your liking?" More than 10 men with murderous auras walked out. They held large knives in their hands and clapped their hands. They stared at Wanyan Shursin with evil smiles. "It's you." Wanyan Shursin narrowed his eyes. He pushed the shopkeeper away and strode out. You dare to attack me. Are you looking for death? Ha 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 ha. The leader of the group raised his head and laughed. He stared at him angrily. Looking for death? We're here to send you on your way. You can't possibly think that I'll let you go just because you cut off one of my arms? Impossible. Fengjiu looked at the man. Only then did she see that the man was half covered by a black cloak. His right hand was empty. When she saw the murderous intent and hatred in the man's eyes, Fengjiu was silent. She knew that they were here for Wanyan Shisan. You want to kill me with just a few of you? Oomph. You're overestimating yourselves. Wanyan Shisan snorted coldly and glanced at the dozen of them. Even if there were only a dozen of them, they were nothing in his eyes. Even if there were another dozen of them, he would not be afraid. Is that so? He raised his eyebrows slightly and made a sound with his hand. 3 figures appeared and surrounded them. Wanyan Shisan looked at the 3 people. One of them was an old man who looked to be in his 60s. His gray hair was a little messy and his body was small. He was bent over and held a skeleton cane in his hand. The handle of the cane was white and seemed to be made of bones. At the top of the cane was a skull that was slightly bigger than a fist. The other man was tall and sturdy, holding a long black round iron in his hand. He was twice the size of an ordinary man. He was wearing gray clothes, with long and short pants rolled up on his feet. He wore a pair of woven straw shoes and a bamboo basket with a wide bottom and a small opening hung from his waist. When he grinned, there was a hint of gloom in his simple and honest manner, making people involuntarily shudder. The last person was a beautiful woman. She wore a black muslin dress, and half of her hair hung down to cover her face. She played with her hair in one hand. Her pure, white, jade-like fingers were very eye-catching. As her fingers moved, they seemed to inadvertently brush across her chest. It made people's hearts beat faster. However, her fingernails were black. Her white, jade-like fingers and black fingernails formed a strong contrast. It caused the ripples in people's hearts to disappear without a trace. All that was left was vigilance and defense. Looking at the 3 people, Wanyan Shisan's expression changed slightly. For the first time, a serious look appeared on his face. The 3 monsters of the Green River. Oh my, I didn't think that you would have such good eyesight. You could tell the origins of us 3 siblings at a glance. The beautiful woman in black smiled. This smile caused her ample bosom to tremble slightly. Her white, jade-like skin and her black muslin dress were extremely tempting. However, they also carried a fatal danger. Fengjiu sat at the table and took a sip of wine. His clear eyes swept past the 3 people. He then looked at Wanyan Shisan and asked, "What are the origins of the 3 monsters of the Green River? Why are you being targeted by these people?" Chapter 3004. You're still drinking? Hurry up and come over. This little girl, did she not know the danger? If it was just the people outside, it would be one thing, but with the 3 Green River monsters, it would be troublesome if he had to protect this little girl. Can you beat them? Fengjiu asked. If I didn't bring you along, I wouldn't have a problem. Only they can't hurt me. Wanyan Shisan said, then glanced at her and said, Now do you know why I didn't bring you along? Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. Were you seeing stars because of the loss of spiritual energy? Hearing this, Wanyan Shisan awkwardly looked away. That's right. If it weren't for her, he would have been at the mercy of others after taking the medicine. Speaking of which, he should thank her. Thinking of this, his mouth twitched, and he said to her, You can sit in the corner. Don't run around. I'll deal with him first. As he spoke, his hands formed a complicated and ancient seal, directly condensing a protective barrier and placing her inside. Fengjiu glanced at it, and his eyes flashed. A protective barrier. It looked quite sturdy, but why did he give her such a protective barrier? It wasn't like she couldn't fight. Just as she was thinking this, she saw Wanyan Qianhua cross his hands, and 2 small red flags appeared in his hands. The people in the restaurant had already fled when they saw that the situation wasn't right. The only ones left were the unconscious waiter who had been dragged to the corner by the shopkeeper and the crying shopkeeper who was hiding at the side. His restaurant. He wanted them to fight outside, but he was afraid that he would be killed if he opened his mouth. I've long heard that the Wanyan family's Wanyan Shursan relied on the 5-element flags to travel the entire eastern continent. Even ghosts and serpents avoid you. Today, we'll see what you're capable of. The old man with the skeletal crutch said in a sinister voice. He lifted the skeletal crutch and slammed it on the ground. A visible airflow instantly spread out from the crutch. A gloomy aura, accompanied by a dark aura, surrounded the entire restaurant. It was as if a barrier had been set up to isolate the restaurant from the outside world. The airflow in the air made the interior of the restaurant gloomy. Traces of cold air also surged in the air. The darkness of the light, the gloominess of the air, and the wisps of ghosts floating around made people feel as if they had walked into the underworld. Sitting in a corner, Fengjiu, who was protected by a defensive barrier, was drinking wine. She saw that the restaurant seemed to have changed. She glanced at the old man and saw wisps of white spirits surging out from the mouth of his skull and the 2 black holes of his eyes. Some of the wisps of white, drifting spirits bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they screamed in pain. Some of them had disheveled hair, and their tongues drooped down. Their wails entered one's ears and messed up one's state of mind. She frowned slightly and calmed herself down. She put down the wine glass in her hand and watched quietly. However, at this moment, her eyes fell on the cyan-clothed youth and carefully sized him up. When she looked, she saw that the cyan-clothed youth was also staring at her. Seeing this, she swayed her waist and walked forward. She came to the front of the defensive barrier and said with a smile, "Your chopstick was very accurate, but why are you hiding in there? Come out, and I'll play with you." As she spoke, she slightly tilted her face and pulled her clothes down slightly, revealing a patch of snow-white skin. When Fengjiu saw this, his smile deepened. "Auntie, even if you strip naked and stand in front of me, I won't have any reaction." Chapter 3006. Fengjiu chuckled. "Do you want to kill me? You'll have to be able to kill me first." The beautiful woman in the black veil glanced around and sent a palm towards the defensive cover. The collision of spiritual power caused the defensive cover to emit a loud bang. Wanyan Shursan, who was fighting with 2 people, heard the noise and quickly looked back. He couldn't help but curse angrily. "You're tired of living. Don't provoke that crazy woman." Fengjiu sat leisurely and said with a smile, "You should take care of yourself first. 1 against 2. It won't look good if you get injured." Seeing that she wasn't afraid, Wanyan Shursan didn't pay attention to her anymore. Instead, he thought that the defensive cover should be able to hold on for a while. Right now, he had to deal with these 2 people first. On Fengjiu's side, the beautiful woman in the black veil waved her palm, but she couldn't break Wanyan Shursan's defensive cover. She gritted her teeth and stared at Fengjiu. "Haha, I'll kill that Wanyan Shursan first, then I'll deal with you slowly. Let's see how you die then." She was about to join the battle when she heard a voice coming from the defensive cover. "Didn't you want to play? Are you going to leave like this?" Fengjiu chuckled, picked up another chopstick, and said, "Actually, it's good for me to sit here. For example, I can use some hidden weapons from time to time." As soon as she finished speaking, the chopstick in her hand pierced through the defensive barrier towards the burly man. Unexpectedly, the chopstick pierced through the man's arm that was holding the round iron. Just like that, blood seeped out from the wound, and the man cried out in pain. He turned his head abruptly and looked over with a fierce gaze. "What are you doing? Kill that stinking brat for me." The man glared fiercely at Fengjiu, and the round iron rod in his hand slammed heavily into the defensive barrier. The 2 spiritual forces fought against each other, and in the end, they disappeared without a trace. However, the defensive barrier weakened a little because of this. The beautiful woman in the black veil laughed when she saw this. She flirtatiously returned to the defensive cover and stared at Fengjiu. "How long do you think this defensive cover can protect you?" Fengjiu didn't speak and just watched the fight between Wanyan Shursan and the 2 people. It seemed that Wanyan Shursan was stronger than the 2, but it was 2 against 1 after all, so it was inevitable that it would be difficult to deal with them. However, it seemed that after a long battle, it wouldn't be a problem to deal with the two people. However, what she didn't expect was that after the old man with the skeleton cane was knocked back, he quickly retreated. He stared at Wanyan Shursan and suddenly threw something. That thing turned into a light smoke and spread out. Then, after the smoke dissipated, two tall puppets appeared. The two puppets had long green hair. Their bodies were stiff and their skin was dark green. Their eyes were slightly protruding and they had fangs in their mouths. They were different from ordinary puppets. They were like corpses that had been refined after death. Fengjiu looked at the two corpses and saw that their fingertips were long and sharp. Their long hair and faces looked very scary. They were similar to the corpses she had seen before. Moreover, the corpse aura of these two corpses was extremely heavy. After the two green-haired corpses appeared, the old man and the burly man retreated to the side to watch. The old man's face was filled with ruthlessness and excitement as he stared at Wanyan Shursan. Chapter 3007. Corpses were fed with blood, and these two green-furred corpses were definitely not ordinary corpses in terms of size and speed. In addition, the restaurant was invaded by Yin Shi, and Yin spirits were flying everywhere. Now that these two green-furred corpses appeared, Fengjiu couldn't help but frown. He was worried that Wanyan Shursan wouldn't be able to handle it. The shopkeeper, hiding in the corner, saw the two terrifying corpses, and he immediately covered his mouth and fainted. The two Yin spirits saw this and immediately floated to the shopkeeper and the unconscious waiter and directly leaned on them. The two unconscious people's bodies were instantly seized, and they were controlled by the two Yin spirits to stagger forward and pounce on Wanyan Shursan. Fengjiu saw this and was about to make a move, but he saw the shopkeeper and the waiter were kicked away by Wanyan Shursan. They directly fell into the backyard and out of the Yin Shi enchantment. At the same time, the two Yin spirits were also collected by him. The burly man saw this and reached out from the bamboo basket at his waist. It was as if he had grabbed something and threw it in the direction of Wanyan Shursan. A handful of tiny black poisonous creatures scattered and surrounded Wanyan Shursan. What the hell is this? Wanyan Shursan cursed in a low voice. He waved the red flag, and a flame rose up to burn the countless poisonous creatures. At the same time, he also had to avoid the attacks of the two green-furred corpses. For a moment, he was overwhelmed. "I'll help you," Fengjiu said and got up and stepped out of the barrier. Wanyan Shursan looked back and his face turned black with anger. "Are you stupid? Running out to die? How can you help me?" Was this little girl stupid? Didn't she know how dangerous the situation was? Didn't she know that if she went out of the barrier, she would most likely die? He said that it was troublesome to bring a woman, especially a disobedient woman. When the beautiful woman in black saw Fengjiu step out of the barrier, she immediately moved her finger, and a hair flew out from her hand and quickly wrapped around Fengjiu. But at this time, Fengjiu raised his eyes and glanced at the beautiful woman in black, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, revealing a wicked smile. "Do you want to play? Then I'll play with you." After she finished speaking, she hooked the strand of black hair in her hand and spirit force surged in her palm. A spark appeared and burned her black hair along the strand of hair. "Ah!" The beautiful woman cried out in alarm. She tried to slap away the flames on her head. However, the flames burned her hair and made sizzling sounds. How could she slap them away? Not long after, the beautiful woman's silky hair was burned into a pile of ashes. All that was left was her scalp, which had been burned red and blistered. It looked very hideous. "My head, my hair. Ah, I want to kill you. Kill you." She screamed crazily, and her voice was so sharp that it penetrated the eardrums. Her hands moved, and 10 silk threads with black poisonous needles shot out from her hand and suddenly attacked Fengjiu. Wanyan Shursan wanted to come back and help, but he was forced further and further away by the two green-haired corpses. Seeing the 10 poisonous needles with the aura of death flying towards Fengjiu, he hurriedly shouted, "Quickly run to my side." If she ran to his side, he could at least protect her. Chapter 3008. The cyan figure became extremely fast at this moment. He took a step forward and waved the dagger in his hand. There was a clanging sound when the dagger blocked the poisonous needle. Then a cold light flashed. The dagger was raised and fell again, cutting off the silk thread. Feng Jiu turned around and came behind the beautiful woman in black gauze. The sharp dagger was placed on her neck without any pause. A trace of blood oozed out. The beautiful woman in black gauze froze. Her eyes were wide open, as if she couldn't believe what had happened. Seeing this scene, the old man and the man's faces changed. Their eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. Stinking brat. The man stepped forward and attacked Feng Jiu with a round iron rod in his hand. Before the rod fell, Feng Jiu quickly dodged. After dodging the attack, he moved forward again. The long iron rod was only suitable for long-range attacks, not close combat. If it was close combat, the long iron rod wouldn't be able to exert its advantage. At this moment, she leaned forward step by step while avoiding the sharp edge of the long iron rod. Clang! The long iron rod suddenly attacked her from the side. She used the dagger in her hand to block it. The powerful aura of spiritual power contained in the dagger caused the iron rod to bounce back when the two weapons collided. Even a man was shaken back a few steps. This attack made the man realize that Feng Jiu's strength was unfathomable. As he quickly retreated, he poured out the poisonous things in the bamboo basket and sprinkled them at Feng Jiu. When the poisonous things were sprinkled at Feng Jiu, a wall of fire ignited in front of Feng Jiu. The poisonous things were all burned to ashes by the wall of fire and fell to the ground. Even the ghosts didn't dare to approach because of the powerful flames of the other party. They shrank to the corner. Damn! Wang Yinshe-san widened his eyes in amazement. He didn't expect this little girl with a small body to be so good at fighting. It seemed that he really underestimated her. Seeing that she had dealt with the beautiful woman in black veil and attacked the man, his fighting spirit was also aroused. He planned to end the battle quickly and destroy the two green-haired corpses before dealing with the old monster. Big brother, this brat is very strong. I can't stop him. The man retreated step by step. His body was already riddled with wounds from the dagger's sharp edge. Fresh blood splattered everywhere, causing the ghosts in the corner to involuntarily stare at the man. Even if you can't block it for me. Before the old monster could finish his words, he paused. He widened his eyes in shock as he looked at the man who had been shouting at him a moment ago and had fallen to the ground with a bang. For a moment, he panicked. Two of them, the three freaks of the Green River, had actually been killed just like that. If the battle continued, wouldn't he die as well? Escape? But to let him watch them die while he himself ran for his life, even if he survived, what was the point? At that moment, a crazy idea arose in his mind. Even if he died, he would drag these two down with him. He heavily stabbed the skeletal crutch in his hand into the ground. The crutch directly penetrated the ground and pierced into the ground. He revealed a cold and bloodthirsty smile as he stabbed a finger into his chest. Blood immediately gushed out like a fountain. He used the blood in his heart as a guide and drew a strange blood array on the ground. Finally, he sat cross-legged in the middle of the blood array and gloomily stared at Wang Yinshe-san's Feng Jiu. Chapter 3009. Quick, stop him. He's using blood as a guide to attract the ghosts from all directions. Wang Yinshe-san cried out in alarm. After killing one of the green-furred corpses, another one pounced forward. Hearing this, Feng Jiu immediately went forward. However, as soon as he got close, he was bounced back by a stream of air condensed by a bloody light. He quickly retreated a few steps before he could stabilize himself. He watched as the old monster closed his eyes and muttered something. Blood slowly seeped out from his chest, forming a large pool of blood below him. The blood then divided into streams and flowed along the blood traces of the blood formation, strengthening the power of the blood formation. At this moment, the two eye sockets of the skeleton staff that was inserted into the ground in the middle of the skeleton staff were suffused with a bloody light. Wisps of ghosts and ghosts surged out of the skeleton's mouth and gathered in the blood formation, greedily absorbing the essence blood. On the other side, Wanyan Shursan, who had burned the other green-furred corpse, came to Fengjiu's side. Seeing the scene in the blood formation, his face couldn't help but change. This is troublesome. Where did he get all these Yin spirits from? What are the consequences of doing this? Fengjiu asked. Underground. Wanyan Shursan looked at the blood formation and said with a grave expression, the ghosts and ghosts that absorb the essence blood will greatly increase their strength. Moreover, if they escape, I'm afraid it will bring disaster to this small town. Hearing this, Fengjiu asked again, that blood formation seems to be very powerful. I just got close and was bounced back. Do you have any good ideas to deal with it? His blood formation has already been activated. We can only make a move when the blood in his body runs out. For now, it's better to be on guard. He looked around and said, I'll first break the 3-yin barrier here, then set up another barrier to prevent the ghost from escaping. As he spoke, he took a few steps back and took out a small flag. He waved it in his hand, and the ghosts hiding in the corners were sucked into the flag. Then he walked around the area and found the broken point of the 3-yin barrier. He stuck a small red flag in it. After inserting the small red flag, he circulated his spirit force, and a blue flame shot out from the small flag. It quickly devoured the air in the air and purified the barrier. Then he inserted a few small flags and quickly set up another barrier. The people outside couldn't see what was happening inside, so they didn't know what was happening inside. However, when the 3-yin barrier was broken, the corpses on the ground and the scene inside made them shiver and cry out in alarm. The people outside the restaurant who were waiting to take their lives instinctively retreated step by step. In the end, they cried out in alarm and quickly fled. Wanyan Shursan and Fengjiu couldn't care less about the people outside. The two of them watched as the old monster's head drooped down. The essence blood in his body had finally flowed out. The ghosts that had gathered in the blood formation were so crowded that it seemed like they were about to explode. In particular, some of the stronger ghosts had even begun to devour the weaker ghosts. There was another round of killing and devouring inside. When the countless ghosts grew into 4 or 5, the blood formation also let out a cracking sound. The 4 or 5 ghosts that had turned from ghost to ghost rushed out and pounced on Fengjiu and Wanyan Shursan. Be careful. Chapter 30:10. However, the auras of the things that had turned into malicious ghosts were also extremely powerful. If they were compared to cultivators, the strength of these malicious ghosts should be at the peak of the fairy realm. With this kind of strength, and with 4 or 5 of them attacking together, it would not be easy to deal with them. Even Wanyan Shursan felt that it was difficult to deal with them for the first time. Fengjiu also noticed that those small ghosts did not dare to get close to her, but these were different. Among the 5 ghosts that had turned into malicious ghosts, 2 of them headed towards Wanyan Shursan, while the other 3 surrounded her from 3 directions. Their bodies that had become stronger because of the devouring gradually seemed to have a physical body. At this moment, they were drooling and staring at her with an excited expression, as if they had found something delicious. In an instant, the 3 malicious ghosts let out hissing sounds and pounced towards Fengjiu. Their sharp black nails were aimed at her neck, and the cold aura of death and death alternated in the face, causing her to frown involuntarily. This gloomy aura of death really made people uncomfortable. She put away her dagger, and a flame condensed in her palm. The flames separated from her hand into 3 balls that clearly attacked the 3 malicious ghosts. 2 of them dodged, but the other one was the fastest to pounce, but because it could not dodge in time, it was hit by the flame, burning a big hole in the body of the ghost that had just condensed into a physical body. A shrill scream rang out, and the body that had just condensed into a physical body gradually turned into nothingness. At this moment, a malicious ghost that had retreated to the side saw this and pounced on it, opening its mouth and swallowing the soul into its stomach. Fengjiu's hands turned, and the flame attacked again. However, at this moment, The two malicious ghosts pounced on her, and she only felt her vision turn pitch black, as if she had fallen into an endless darkness. Even the sounds around her could not be heard. Wanyin Shi-san? Wanyin Shi-san? She shouted loudly, but she didn't hear any response. At this moment, she looked around, but all she could see was endless darkness. The feeling of not being able to see her own fingers made her feel that the gloomy aura in the air was getting heavier. At this moment, she heard a series of chaotic screams. That sound was like a demon's voice that disturbed her thoughts, tried to invade her brain, and control her actions. She saw scenes appearing in the darkness. Those scenes seemed to be memories from the depths of her mind. Around her, even though she couldn't see them, she could feel the chilling aura around her. It was as if she was surrounded by ghosts. However, those souls did not dare to approach her, and the two evil spirits that had physical bodies also disappeared without a trace, as if they had disappeared. She used the fire in her palm to illuminate the area in front of her. She seemed to see a faint light in front of her, so she followed the light. Fengjiu. Fengjiu. After Wanyin Shi-san subdued the two evil spirits, he subdued the other two people. However, he was also badly injured after fighting 4 evil spirits alone. At this moment, his face was a little pale, and his forehead was sweating. He covered his bleeding wound with one hand and shouted in Fengjiu's ear, "Fengjiu! Fengjiu! Come back to your senses! Fengjiu! Come back to your senses!" Chapter 30:11. The smell of blood entered her nose. Fengjiu walked towards the dot of light and saw someone holding something dirty and wet to draw on her face. That feeling was unbearable, and she reached out to slap it. Pah! The slap landed on her face. While she woke up, she was also stunned. "What are you doing?" Her face was dark. She didn't need to look to know that her face was definitely not human or ghost. She glanced at Wanyin Shi-san and saw that he was also staring at her blankly. One of his fingers was still stained with blood, as if he was going to draw on her face. Seeing this, the corner of her mouth twitched. "You're awake?" Wanyin Shi-san looked at her with disdain and said, "You look so ugly. What are you drawing on my face with blood?" Fengjiu asked with a frown. She looked around, and her heart was slightly shocked. In this short period of time, he had taken care of everything. "If I didn't draw a blood mark for you, do you think you would have been able to come back?" He said in exasperation and then looked at her in confusion. "But you..." He seemed to want to say something, but he didn't know how to say it. In the end, he just waved his hand and said, "All right, I won't talk to you anymore. Quickly go and wash your face. What's a girl like you doing?" Fengjiu looked at him speechlessly. Seeing that he had removed the barrier, she went to the back courtyard to wash her face. When she came back, she saw him sitting at a table, bandaging his wounds. She walked forward and said, "Let me help you." AI, what are you tearing off my cloth for?" "I just tied it up." "Aren't you messing around?" Wanyin Shi-san shouted. He saw Fengjiu sprinkle something on his wounds, causing him to groan in pain. He stared at the white blisters that appeared after the medicine was sprinkled on his wounds. "What did you sprinkle on? Why did it roll out?" "I'm the one asking you what you sprinkled. Don't your Wanyin family know that if you don't treat your wounds properly, there will be problems?" Fengjiu said as he cleaned the wound and tied the bandage again. "If you were my sister's 13th uncle, I wouldn't have bothered with you." "Huh, you're such a heartless little girl. Why don't you think about it? I've been taking care of you all this time, and you're actually saying this to me? Tell me, if I didn't help you summon your soul back, do you think you would still be standing here talking?" "Yes, I have to thank you for drawing on my face. How can you blame me for that? I already said that I did it for your own good. If I didn't draw the talisman, forget it, I won't talk about it. I know that you're such a heartless little girl." He waved his hand, as if he didn't want to talk to her anymore. After Fengjiu tied the wound, she walked to the dead black-veiled woman and the man and collected all their things. As for the old monster, she turned around and said to Wanyin Shi-san, "Do it yourself. You're taking 2?" Wanyin Shi-san glanced at the things in her hand. "It looks like there are a lot of bad things. Who told these 2 people to be killed by me?" she said leisurely. She took out some gold coins from one of the Chinkoan bags and put it on the table. She said to the shopkeeper who had woken up but was hiding in the backyard and didn't dare to come out, "These are compensation for you." Chapter 30:12. Where are those bastards? Did they all run away? He walked out with large strides and looked around with his hands on his hips. The commoners who were standing far away could not help but jump in fright when they saw him, and they all stepped back. Fengjiu walked outside and said, "Let's go. Let's find another place." Seeing this, Wanyan Shurshan did not say anything else and followed her out. After walking on the street for a while, they came to a restaurant and ordered a table of food and wine. This time, he stared at the table of food and wine and asked, "Is there a problem with these?" "No problem, let's eat." Fengjiu picked up some food and ate as she said, "Even if there's a problem, it's fine. As long as you're still breathing, I will save you." Wanyan Shurshan snorted lightly and did not say much to her. Instead, he poured a cup of wine and drank it, then picked up some food and ate. However, both of them were more or less stained with blood, especially Wanyan Shurshan. His fierce appearance scared the people in the restaurant so much that they all paid the bill and left after they came in. Fengjiu ate and looked at the people who gradually gathered outside the restaurant. Each of them stared at them and pointed at them, not knowing what they were talking about. She took a sip of wine and gestured, "Look, why are so many people surrounding the restaurant? And they're all staring at us. It looks like they are here for us, right?" Wanyan Shurshan drank a bowl of soup and looked outside, saying, "I can't confirm that other than those bastards from before, I shouldn't have offended anyone else here. Moreover, those people from before were not originally from this place. They probably received some information and set up an ambush here." Hearing this, Fengjiu did not say anything more and picked up some food to eat. She did not eat well first and did not want to be disturbed while eating this time. As the two of them ate in the restaurant, more and more people gathered outside. Not long after, a short and fat middle-aged man came over with a group of people and surrounded the restaurant. Someone saw the short and fat middle-aged man and quickly walked to his side. "Mayor, you're here. The two of them are in the restaurant. Did you really see those two people raising ghosts to harm people?" The middle-aged man asked. "Isn't it? Previously, the restaurant was destroyed by the two of them. In broad daylight, we suddenly couldn't see what was going on inside the restaurant. When we could see again, there were already a few corpses on the ground. I also saw that man waving a small flag over there. I saw that all the ghosts were sucked into the flag. The Zhang family's 5-year-old child was so scared that he lost his soul. He kept crying and making a fuss. No matter how hard we tried to coax him, it was useless. The old man from the Li family was so scared that he couldn't catch his breath and died. Our town isn't that big. Now everyone is saying that our town is haunted and that a disaster has come. Mayor, you must drive these two people out of our town. Otherwise, who knows what will happen. Mayor, those two people deal with ghosts, and they have ghosts by their side. They are trying to harm us. Mayor, we must drive them out." Chapter 30:13. Hearing this, the two who were eating were startled and couldn't help but look at each other. "Are they talking about us? Are they going to kick us out of this town?" Fengjiu asked in astonishment. He looked at the people outside the restaurant and saw that the one who spoke was a short and fat middle-aged man. He stared at him for a while. Wanyan Shurshan picked up a drumstick and ate it. He glanced outside and vaguely said, "Let's go down and take a look after we're done eating." In any case, he didn't plan on going down now. If he couldn't eat his fill after 2 meals, he wouldn't have the face to eat a third. Hearing this, Fengjiu was startled and smiled. "That's true. Let's eat first." He didn't pay attention to the people below and focused on filling his stomach. The crowd gathered outside the restaurant and pointed at the two people in the restaurant. No one dared to go in. The town's mayor also didn't dare to let anyone in. He just waited outside until the two people stood up and walked down. The crowd couldn't help but feel their hearts tighten as they watched nervously. "What do you want?" Wanyan Shurshan asked, and his gaze fell on the mayor. Being stared at like this, the mayor couldn't help but take a step back and say, Don't come over. Just stand there and don't move." His voice trembled as he looked at the two people in front of him. He swallowed his saliva and said, "Quickly leave. Don't come to our town. As soon as you came to our town, people died. There were also children who were scared to death by you. There was also an old man who was scared to death. Let's go." Hearing this, Fengjiu was startled. He then thought of what happened in the restaurant and looked at the expressions of the surrounding people. He suddenly understood. So it was like that. They were scared by the Yin souls. Apart from cultivators with high cultivation, generally speaking, only children with pure hearts and some people with bad luck would be able to see the Yin souls. Wanyan Shursan had set up a barrier in formation in the restaurant. She didn't think that it would scare these people. "Where are the children who were scared?" Wanyan Shursan asked. What do you want to do?" The mayor asked cautiously. "Didn't you say that the children were scared? I'll help him suppress the shock, and he'll be fine." As Wanyan Shursan spoke, he glanced at the mayor and said, "Otherwise, some people will be scared and will be in a daze." The mayor couldn't help but look behind him. At this moment, a man behind him and said, "Will he really be fine? You won't hurt my son, right? We have no enmity with you. Why would we hurt you?" Wanyan 13 said snappily, "How about it?" Hearing this, the man Shursan. "You can do that?" Fengjiu glanced at Wanyan Shursan in surprise. "What kind of family is our Wanyan Shursan? What can't we do? It's just a scare. I'll use a talisman and he'll be fine." Wanyan Shursan said confidently. Chapter 30:14. Woo. Bower, wake up. Bower, wake up. Don't scare Mother. Mother will take you to see the candy figurines. Mother will buy them for you, okay? Bower. Respond to Mother, ah. The woman stroked the child's head while calling out his nickname. Her voice was mournful, and her tears fell like rain. Fengjiu also felt uncomfortable when he heard this. She didn't expect that because of their negligence, because of their own reasons, this family would become like this. For parents, children were like treasures in their hands, especially such a small child. They were even more protective. Now, the child in the woman's arms was white and chubby, but his eyes were dull and lifeless. Saliva was dripping from the corner of his mouth. No matter how his mother called out to him, no matter how she stroked his head, he didn't have the slightest reaction. She couldn't help but take a deep breath and look at Wanyan Shursan. "Didn't you say you could? Go take a look." The child seemed to have been frightened to the point that his soul was shaken. It shouldn't be difficult for the Wanyan family to recover his soul. Wanyan Shursan stepped forward and said to the woman, "Put the child on the bed. I will help you take a look at him." Woo. My bower. The woman cried. Her hair was messy, and her face was sorrowful. As if she didn't hear Wanyan Shursan's words, she still held her child tightly. At this time, the child's father stepped forward and said, "They said they can make Bower better. Quickly put the child on the bed and let them take a look at Bower. Maybe they can really cure him." Hearing this, the woman hugged the child and knelt down in front of Wanyan Shursan and Fengjiu. I beg you to save my child. My child is so obedient. If he becomes like this in the future, what should I do? Don't worry, I can cure him. Put him on the bed." Wanyan Shursan gestured. The child's father quickly helped the woman up and put the child on the bed. He pulled the woman to the side to watch. Fengjiu was also watching from the side. After Wanyan Shursan came to the bedside, he took out a red talisman from his sleeve and ordered, "Bring me a teacup." Fengjiu took a teacup from the side and handed it over. He pricked the child's finger and squeezed some blood into the teacup. He then dipped his finger in the blood and drew a talisman on the talisman paper. Finally, he dipped his finger in the blood and pressed it on the child's eyebrows, leaving a blood-colored fingerprint there. "Water," Wanyan Shursan called. Fengjiu came forward with the kettle. He took the kettle and poured half a cup of clear water into the blood-stained teacup. He held the talisman paper between two fingers and brushed it. When the flames burned, he stuffed the talisman paper into the teacup. He watched as the talisman paper turned into ashes and turned into talisman water. He helped the child up and poured the talisman water into the child's mouth. Not long after, the blood-colored fingerprint between the child's eyebrows disappeared without a trace. Immediately after, the child's originally dull eyes gradually regained their vitality. Mother, father. The child climbed up from the bed. Seeing so many strangers in the house, he was both afraid and curious. The woman and man were startled and went forward with joy. Bow, you're better? Bow, you're better. That's great, that's great. Bow, mother's good bow. Chapter 30:15. Seeing the child looking at them curiously, Fengjiu smiled. With a flip of her hand, a bright red fruit appeared in her palm. She stepped forward and offered the fruit to the child. Here, eat it. Looking at the child, she couldn't help but think of little Hauer. After a few more years, little Hauer would be this big. When the little guy was a little more mature, she could teach him cultivation. When the child saw the red fruit, he couldn't help but bite his lips. He looked at his mother, then at Fengjiu. Finally, he reached out to take it and held it tightly in his hands. Thank you, big brother. The child's soft voice was filled with joy as he thanked them. Thank you, both of you. Only then did the couple react and quickly thank them. The mayor looked at Fengjiu and Wanyan-Shi-san. He hesitated for a moment before saying, Both of you, please come outside to talk. When the two of them saw this, they followed him outside. When they were outside, the mayor asked, May I ask who the two of you are? He originally thought that they were from the heretical sects, but now it seemed that they were not quite the same. Wanyan-Shi-san was about to speak when he heard Fengjiu's voice. We are from the mortal sect. This time, we were ordered to do something. However, we didn't expect to be ambushed in the small town. We also didn't expect that this would cause a misunderstanding. While speaking, Fengjiu took out a token and handed it over. When the mayor saw it, he was relieved. So you are from the immortal sect. Then we really misunderstood you. He breathed a sigh of relief and finally relaxed. He handed the token back and said, Because the people in the town saw you killing people in the restaurant, and there were also ghosts floating around, so they thought you were from the heretical sections. Now that the misunderstanding has been cleared up, this Chun apologizes to the two of you. While speaking, he cupped his hands and bowed to the two as an apology. After all, they had misunderstood them and even said that they wanted to chase them away. Now that he thought about it, it was really rude. Fengjiu smiled and said, Mayor, we are here on a mission. I heard that there is a small village nearby that often has problems. Hearing this, the mayor was startled. Are you talking about the village near the Een Mountain? That place is taboo. The town has set up a taboo. That place is forbidden for being talked about or discussed. We came here because a senior apprentice sister was ordered to clean up the filthy things there, but she went missing. The immortal sect sent us here to look for her. If Mayor knows anything, you can tell us. Fengjiu said slowly. The mayor hesitated for a moment and said, How about this? Follow me back to the residence. You can rest in my residence tonight so that I can find time to have a good talk with you. Sorry to bother you, Fengjiu said with a smile and glanced at Wanyan-Shi-san. Wanyan-Shi-san glanced at her and didn't say anything. He just followed the mayor out and stayed in his residence tonight. Because of the mayor's words and the family's child's recovery, the townspeople gradually came to know that these two people weren't bad people. Thus, they relaxed and dispersed. Chapter 30:16. I don't know when it started, but the Een Mountain has been shrouded in clouds all year round, and there have been rumors of strange things happening in the village at the foot of the Een Mountain. I went there once and advised the villagers to move, but the ancestors of the dozen or so families there have been there for generations, and they wouldn't move even if I told them to. Later, some cultivators who were passing by wanted to go there to see what was going on, but none of them came back. Those who went in groups also didn't come back. Gradually, no one dared to go there anymore. Fengjiu asked, What about the villagers? Are they still alive and well? Yes, that's what's strange. The village was built on the mountain, and there weren't many families. Only a few strange things happened, but no one had any problems. That's really strange. Fengjiu and Wanyan-Shi-san looked at each other and asked. Then before that, did the mayor see an extremely beautiful woman in red come to town? That woman was my senior sister. She was the one who went to the small village under orders. An extremely beautiful woman in red. The mayor thought for a moment and said, "Now that you mention it, there really was such a beautiful woman in red." At that time, it was because a few cultivators passing by took a fancy to her beauty and wanted to make a move on her, which caused a commotion. Otherwise, with so many people in the town, we wouldn't have been able to remember who she was. And then, Wanyan Shursen asked. After that, those male cultivators who had their eyes on the woman in red ran out of the city crazily for some reason, saying that something was chasing them. Later on, I heard that the woman in red stayed in the town for a night and then left. She also went in the direction of Een Mountain. Hearing this, the two fell into deep thought. She really did go to the small village in the Een Mountain. Since she went there, with Wanyan Qianhua's cultivation and strength, how could she have gone missing? What exactly happened there? That night, the two listened to the mayor talk about the small village in the Een Mountain. They didn't return to their rooms to rest until it was late at night. After entering the room, Feng Zhou meditated and closed her eyes to cultivate. However, in the middle of the night, she suddenly heard the sound of someone walking on the roof. She immediately opened her eyes and pushed open the door to go outside. She jumped onto the roof and saw a black figure carrying an unconscious girl across the roof, heading into the night. "Who is it?" When Feng Zhou shouted, Wanyan Shursan's figure also jumped out. He went around from the other side and blocked the way of the black figure. Seeing the man in black carrying a girl who was unconscious and only wearing a white undergarment, he immediately shouted, "Put her down." As soon as his voice fell, he attacked the man in black at the same time. When he heard the commotion, he didn't even have time to put on his clothes. When he saw the young girl on the black figure's shoulder, he was so scared that he almost fainted. "That's my daughter, my daughter." He shouted in panic and wanted to go up to help. However, he saw that the man in black was still agile while carrying the girl. Feng Zhou and Wanyan Shursan were blocking him. He was afraid that he would be more of a hindrance if he went up, so he stayed below to guard. Chapter 30:17. Seeing the young girl being thrown to the ground from the roof, Feng Zhou immediately leaped up and caught her. He landed steadily and handed the young girl over to the mayor. However, when he looked up again, he saw that the black-clothed man had smashed something down. Thick smoke filled the air, blurring his vision. Just as the black-clothed man was about to take the opportunity to leave, Feng Jiayu moved her fingers slightly, and a silver needle shot out with a whoosh. "Ah!" With a muffled groan, the man in black, who had jumped up, fell on the roof and rolled down to the ground. When he was about to get up, Wanyan 13, who had jumped down from above, stepped on him and pressed him down. When he was about to pull him up and interrogate him, he saw the man in black stiffen and bend his body slightly, as if all the tendons and veins in his body were twitching. Then his eyes bulged and he fell down. Seeing this, the two frowned. "He died just like that?" "Xiaoru, Xiaoru." The mayor covered his daughter, who was only wearing undergarments, with his coat and called out, but his daughter showed no signs of waking up. "She's just unconscious from the drug. It's all right. She'll wake up tomorrow morning," Feng Zhou said, telling the mayor not to worry. Hearing Feng Zhou's words, the mayor nodded. "I'll send Xiaoru back to her room first." Saying this, he sent his daughter back to her room and sent people to patrol the manor. "This man in black has an evil aura on him," Wanyan Shursan said, and thought for a moment, then said, "He should be someone from the evil faction. But why would someone from the evil faction appear in this small town? Why would someone from the evil faction want to capture this girl? And they only sent one person? It's a little strange," Feng Zhou said, looking at the man on the ground. "Ask the mayor. Maybe he'll know something." "Okay," Wanyan Shursan nodded. After the mayor settled his daughter down, they went to look for him. Before the two of them could say anything, the mayor waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to say anything. He said, "I know what you want to ask. That's right, I did hide some things." He sighed and said, "Tonight, I've told you so much about Een Mountain, but I didn't tell you about our town. Recently, there have been young girls disappearing for no reason in our town. Because of this, every family is in a state of panic. Many families with daughters have moved to the city. Some families with daughters have locked them up at home and not allowed them to go out. They are afraid that they will lose their daughters. I've guessed that something must have happened at Een Mountain when all the families lost their daughters. However, I didn't dare to tell anyone because I didn't have the ability to save them. I could only protect my daughter and not let anything happen to her. I know I'm selfish, but there's nothing I can do. Hearing this, Wanyan Shur-san said in a deep voice, "Then all the more reason why you should tell us, so that we could be prepared. Let us know what's going on." Fengjiu smiled and didn't mind, only saying, "I think the mayor thinks that after we go to Een Mountain, we won't be able to return. If you tell us about this, I'm afraid it will cause unnecessary trouble." Chapter 30:18. I'm sorry. The mayor lowered his head in shame. "All right, I'll go back and sleep for a while," Fengjiu said. She did not say anything else and turned to go back to her room. Wanyan Shur-san glanced at the mayor and also turned to go back to his room. The next day, the two of them left at dawn and headed towards the small village in the Een Mountain. As they walked along the small path, Wanyan Shur-san looked at Fengjiu and asked, "Little girl, who are you?" The two of them had been walking together for a few days. He did not know anything about her other than the fact that her name was Fengjiu and that she was Wanyan Qianhua's sworn sister. "What? You want to know my background?" Fengjiu smiled and glanced at him. "Huh? Why would I want to know your background? I was just thinking that you're quite capable. Where did you come from?" "I just arrived here not long ago. I came down from the Immortal Ascension stairs," Fengjiu said. She took out 2 fruits and threw one to him. Wanyan Shur-san caught the fruit and was slightly surprised. "You came down from the Immortal Ascension stairs? You're not simple. No one brought you?" "No one." She shook her head. If the people here wanted to bring people from their families up, it was not impossible. However, if no one brought them up and they had to come up by themselves, they could only do so after reaching the Immortal Emperor level. Thus, when she said that she came up by herself, Wanyan Shur-san looked at her in surprise. If she did not say it, he would not have known that she was already an Immortal Emperor. However, her current strength was not just an Immortal Emperor. TSK, impressive. I really couldn't tell." He stared at Fengjiu and smiled. "Do you have someone you like? Uncle can introduce you to someone. Our Wanyan family specializes in handsome men and beautiful women." Fengjiu did not say anything. She only looked at him with a half-smile. "What's with that look? What? Am I not handsome? Am I not handsome? I'm not a man." Wanyan Shur-san snorted and said, "Let me tell you, I'm a burly masculine man. Ordinary gigolos can't compare to me. Everyone in our Yin family is like me. All the women are as beautiful as flowers. Of course, there are very few like Qianhua." As he spoke, he took a bite of the fruit and said, "Spirit fruit? Looks like you've hidden a lot of good stuff. Look ahead." Fengjiu gestured, and her eyes fell on the front. In broad daylight, there were a few children of 4 or 5 years old playing on the small path. The children's laughter could be heard, and a few figures were also jumping on the small path, chasing after each other. They looked like ordinary children, but upon closer inspection, one would realize that the sun was high up in the sky and there was sunlight on the path. However, the children did not have shadows. Although they were chasing and playing, their heels did not touch the ground. "Brat." Wanyan Shur-san was slightly surprised and looked up at the bright sun in the sky. Under such a scorching sun, these brats actually dared to come out and play? He strode forward. As soon as the little ghosts saw him coming over aggressively, they screamed and ran away quickly. Chapter 30:19. "Little girl, stay close to me," Wanyan Shur-san said. He stepped on the ground and quickened his pace to catch up. He didn't put the little ghosts away at once. Instead, he followed them at a leisurely pace. Fengjiu followed behind him. She walked along the path until she entered the dense forest. As soon as she entered the dense forest, she felt that the air was a little colder. The sunlight couldn't shine into the dense forest, so it was a little darker inside. She raised her eyes to look inside. In the blink of an eye, Wanyan Shur-san had disappeared. The surroundings were quiet. Only the wind blew, the leaves on the ground rolled up, and the leaves on the trees rustled when they touched each other. Wanyan Shi-san, Fengjiu called out. She slowed down her pace and walked inside. It had only been a while. How could he disappear? She walked inside, but because there was no obvious path to take in the dense forest, she soon got lost and couldn't get out of here. Wanyan Shi-san, she called out. She stopped and looked around. What she saw were trees and weeds that were half a person's height. Just as she was about to go back, she saw an earth spirit ginseng moving in the weeds. Her eyes lit up. She couldn't help but hide her breath and follow it. After walking for a while, she felt that something was following her. She turned around and saw a dirty child, a little ghost. It was following her. When it saw her turn around, it panicked and hid behind a big tree. "Why are you following me?" Fengjiu asked. Her voice was very soft because she was afraid of startling the earth spirit ginseng that she was going to catch. "You can't go there," the little ghost said timidly. Hearing that, Fengjiu was a little surprised. She said, "I don't want to go in. I want to catch that." She pointed at the earth spirit ginseng that was hidden in the weeds with only a little red flower showing. As soon as she finished speaking, the little ghost hesitated for a moment before cautiously moving forward. His figure gradually became transparent. Finally, he went around her and squatted down next to the earth spirit ginseng. He reached out his hand and pulled it out. Fengjiu looked at the little ghost in astonishment. It stretched out its hand to look at the ginseng and then looked at Fengjiu. It stretched out its hand and handed it to Fengjiu. "Here you go." Even Fengjiu couldn't help but stare blankly. After recovering, she took the earth spirit ginseng. The ginseng was 2 fingers wide, shaped like a person, and had a swaggering red flower at the top of the ginseng. She took out a rope and tied it to the ginseng. Then she put it into the space and planted it there. Only then did she look at the timid little ghost standing in front of her. After thinking for a while, she asked, "Why aren't you afraid of the sun?" Such a small little ghost actually dared to wander around in broad daylight? Ah! At that moment, a shrill scream rang out. It was sharp and ear-piercing, and when it spread through the forest, it caused people to shudder involuntarily. At that moment, the little ghost ran towards the source of the sound. Seeing that, Fengjiu followed it, passing through trees and weeds. When they arrived at the place, they saw a middle-aged man in a gray robe with a horsetail whisk in his hand. In front of him, a ghost was kneeling. The ghost figure was sometimes illusory and sometimes real. It floated and swayed as if its soul was going to scatter at any time. Chapter 30:20. Fengjiu frowned slightly when he saw this spiritual power coming out of the horsetail whisk and attacking the little ghost. He waved his sleeve and blocked the attack for the 2 ghosts. The middle-aged man holding the horsetail whisk did not expect Fengjiu to suddenly make a move, so he was repelled by the force and staggered back a few steps. He was slightly angry and stared at Fengjiu and scolded, "What are you doing?" The other ghosts who had retreated to the side were also stunned, as if they did not expect this human to protect ghosts. Wanyan Shi-san raised his thick eyebrows and looked at Fengjiu. However, he did not scold Fengjiu. Instead, he took a big step forward, put his hands on his hips, and glared at the middle-aged man holding the horsetail whisk. "What are you doing?" After bullying ghosts, you want to bully people?" After being yelled at by Wanyan Shi-san, the middle-aged man took a step back to avoid being sprayed with saliva. He pointed at the 2 with the horsetail whisk and said, You are unreasonable. Those are ghosts. They're scourges. Why are you protecting them?" "Scourge you? Have you seen them scourge people?" Fengjiu asked slowly. Seeing the little ghost holding the ghost that was gradually fading and crying, he could not help but frown and ask Wanyan Shi-san, "Don't you know this? Let the big one see, lest its soul scatter." Wanyan Shi-san was slightly surprised and looked at Fengjiu, asking, "Are we really going to save it?" "Of course," Fengjiu said matter-of-factly and asked curiously, "Why not? They didn't do anything to us." "That's true." Wanyan Shi-san nodded. Then he stepped forward and took out a piece of white jade from his bosom. He said to the ghost, "Go in. This white jade can nourish your soul and restore you to your original state." When the ghost heard this, it could not help but look at them. After thinking for a while, it turned into a wisp of smoke and entered the white jade. Here for you. Wanyan Shursan handed the white jade to Fengjiu. Fengjiu took it and handed it to the little ghost. Take it. Consider my thanks for helping me catch the earth spirit ginseng. Hearing this, Wanyan Shursan grinned. So that's how it was. He knew it. This little girl was so kind to help these two ghosts. It turned out that she received benefits from the ghosts. When the middle-aged man saw this, his face darkened and he asked, "Who are the two of you? Why are you stopping me from taking them?" Although I'm a layman, I can see that these ghosts don't have a strong, baleful aura. They probably haven't harmed anyone before. Fengjiu glanced at the man and said, "There are good and bad ghosts. If they haven't harmed anyone, why do you want to take them?" Preposterous. The middle-aged man shouted, "These things shouldn't exist. It's one thing if I didn't encounter them, but now that I've encountered them, how can I not take them?" Fengjiu smiled. "Since you want to take them so much, why don't you come with us to Yin Mountain?" "Where is that?" The middle-aged man asked with a dark face. Obviously, he did not know that place. "Are you a passing rogue cultivator?" "No, you don't seem to be from an ordinary immortal sect." Fengjiu glanced at him and said. Chapter 3021. The Carefree Sect. Fengjiu nodded in understanding. "So that's how it is. My apologies for not recognizing you." "Umph." The middle-aged man snorted. He waved the horsetail whisk in his hand and held it between his arms. Wanyan Shursan also laughed. "That's great. So it's a perfected person from the Carefree Sect. If you really accompany us to the Yin Mountain, then we'll definitely be able to get rid of the ghosts there." "Yin Mountain? What is that place? Is it also haunted by ghosts like here?" When the middle-aged man heard this, he asked, "Who are you two?" The green-robed man just waved his sleeve and actually made him take a few steps back. It was clear that his strength was not ordinary. However, looking at his bone age, he was very young. The two looked at each other and said in unison, "We're from the Blue Star Immortal Sect." Well, now the two of them directly used the name of the Blue Star Immortal Sect. However, it had to be said that it was indeed much easier to do things with this name. It was simple and saved a lot of explanation. Once they said it, the hostility of the other party decreased a lot. The Blue Star Immortal Sect of the four great immortal sects? He looked at the two of them. After seeing the token Fengjiu took out, he nodded. "Let's talk. What kind of place is this Yin Mountain? Also, these ghosts are evil beings. Why do you want to protect them?" Fengjiu looked at the little ghost who was timidly hiding to the side and said, "This little ghost helped me catch the earth spirit ginseng and stopped me from going deeper. I was about to ask why when I heard a scream." She paused and said to Wanyan Shursan, "Tell this perfected person about the Yin Mountain. I'll go ask the little ghost." With that, she walked towards the little ghost. Perhaps because Fengjiu helped them, the other ghosts only looked at her warily. They didn't move or run away. Instead, they quietly watched her approach. "Can you tell me about the area around here? Since you're here, I'm sure you know a thing or two about Yin Mountain, right?" She looked at the ghosts and asked, "There's a powerful ghost king over there, and there are also people from the heretical schools raising ghosts to refine corpses. We don't dare to get too close to that place. If we get discovered, we'll be eaten." A touch of ghost said, glancing at Fengjiu, and continued, "Many cultivators went there and never came out. They all died. Those ghosts suck people's blood essence, especially the cultivator's soul essence, which can strengthen the soul. If we walk further in, we'll reach Yin Mountain. It's not safe there," the little ghost whispered. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed, and he asked, "I heard that there is a small village nearby. What's up with that village?" "We've never been close to that village, so we don't know." The ghosts shook their heads, indicating that they did not know. On the other side, Wanyan Shursan gave the middle-aged man a rough explanation of what had happened on Yin Mountain. After he heard the whole story, the middle-aged man immediately said, "Since it's like that, I'll go with you." "Haha, that's great. With a perfected person going with us, we'll be at ease." Wanyan Shursan smiled and winked at Fengjiu. You can go. Feng Jiu glanced at the ghosts and signaled for them to leave. Chapter 3022. When the middle-aged man saw this, he frowned and said, "You are too soft-hearted. If they harm people in the future, won't it be your fault today?" Feng Jiu chuckled. "Do you want to destroy them now, just to prevent those things from happening in the future?" The middle-aged man was silent and did not speak. Wanyan Shan smiled and said, all right. Let's go to the small village and see what's going on." Thus, the three of them left the forest together and walked along the small path until they arrived at the small village hidden in the mountain. When they saw the smoke rising from the small village, it was peaceful. Feng Jiu and Wanyan Shan looked at each other discreetly. This place looked like an ordinary village. In fact, it was even more peaceful than an ordinary village. However, it was different when it was too peaceful. As they walked forward, they saw 2 rows of peach trees planted at the entrance of the village. Almost every house had a peach tree behind it. Many of the peach trees even had pink and delicious peaches hanging from them. "Why are there so many peach trees in this village?" the middle-aged man said as he looked around. He came under a peach tree and reached out to pluck a peach. He wiped it and ate it. When Wanyan Shan saw this, he plucked 2 peaches and handed one to Feng Jiu. "Here, try it. Are we stealing peaches?" Feng Jiu asked with a smile. He reached out to take the peach. After wiping the peaches clean, he took a bite and walked inside. An old woman sat in front of a house. The old woman looked at them and asked, "Who are you looking for?" Her voice was hoarse and old, and she sounded a little weak. "We are from the mortal sect. We were sent here on a mission." As Wanyan Shan spoke, he strode forward and asked, "Did a beautiful woman in red come here a while ago?" "A woman in red?" The old woman thought for a moment and nodded. "Yes, she came and stayed for a night before leaving. She went to that mountain." She stretched out her skinny hand and pointed at a distant mountain. "Sir, can we stay here for the night?" Feng Jiu asked. "Sure, but we don't have much to entertain you here. The place is simple and crude. You are immortals. Can you get used to living here?" The old woman asked as she stood up with the help of the door. "We're not picky," Wanyan Shan said with a smile. "Come with me. No one lives behind my house, so you guys can stay there. A while ago, the red-clothed fairy came and stayed in the house behind my house." As the old woman spoke, she led them to the back. After arriving at a simple house, she asked them to say, "We only have a dozen or so families here. They are all elderly people living here. The young ones have all gone outside. I heard that strange things often happen in your village. Can you tell us about it?" Feng Jiu asked. "Strange? Haha, strange things are that people fall out of their beds when they sleep at night, bump into walls when they walk at night, and even fall down. 2 days ago, old Madame Li fell down. She's still lying in bed now." When they heard this, they said, "I know a little about medicine. I can help take a look at her. Please lead us there." "Okay." The old woman nodded. With trembling steps, she led them to the house at the back of the village. Chapter 3023. Hearing this, the old lady turned to look at Feng Jiu and said, "Because this place is called Peach Village." What kind of answer was that? It sounded right, but it was not the answer she wanted to know. She felt that it was not just because of the name. Peach trees were meant to ward off evil spirits, and this village was strange. If the people who lived here did not know about it, it would be even stranger. However, it was obvious that the old lady did not want to talk about it, so she did not ask. "This is the place." The old lady pushed the door open and said, "She lives here with her husband. Come in." As she spoke, the old lady walked in and said, "Old Lady Li, a few immortals passed by and said that they could treat you. I brought them here. Go in. I'll go back first," the old woman said as she walked out. Feng Jiu and the others walked in and saw an old lady lying on the bed and an old man busying himself in the room. They went up to greet them. "Old lady, where are you hurt?" Feng Jiu asked. After sizing them up, the 2 old men pointed at their feet and said they hurt their feet. Feng Jiu went up to take a look and saw that there was medicine on her feet. He applied the medicine and saw that it was only a swollen hamstring. He took out the medicine and bandaged it again, saying, It's just a hamstring injury. It's not a big deal. You'll be fine after 2 days. As she spoke, she asked, Old lady, how did you fall? Those things push me. The old lady said and looked at them. We're used to this kind of thing happening here. Fengjiu laughed lightly. Old lady, how do you know that those things pushed you? If those things really existed, they wouldn't have pushed you down. Haha, you call yourself an immortal. You don't know, do you? Those things don't dare to come close. Even if they do, they don't dare to touch us. The old woman chuckled as she lay on the bed and said, Here, those who often fall down or fall off the bed won't be able to live for long. Why do you say that? Fengjiu felt a little strange. Because of my bad luck and the chaos caused by those things, even if I don't die, I will be tortured to death. I don't think I have many days left to live. Her tone was indifferent, as if she was talking about someone else's matter. There was no fear in her voice. You people outside must be wondering why those filthy things don't dare to touch us or come close to us, right? This old woman will tell you today. It's because our village has planted peach trees. Peach trees can ward off evil spirits. Ordinary evil things don't dare to get close to them, but there are some powerful ones. However, we are not afraid because we are all wearing clothes made of peach tree bark. Hearing this, the three of them were slightly shocked. Clothes made of peach bark? That was many years ago. An old immortal asked us to plant peach trees. He said that they were edible and could ward off evil spirits. Thirdly, they were beautiful. The old immortal even taught us to weave clothes with the branches of the peach trees. Every family had one. Hearing this, they came to a realization. So that was the case. Fengjiu and the others said their goodbyes and turned to leave. They returned to the house that the old lady had arranged for them to rest. Chapter 3024. It was a pity that they could not meet such a person. What kind of person would have such foresight? They said they were going to rest in the village, but they quietly left at night and headed towards Een Mountain. They planned to investigate Een Mountain, so it was more convenient to act at night. You too, follow behind me, the middle-aged man said and waved his horsetail whisk, gesturing for Wanyan Shursan and Fengjiu to follow behind him. Fengjiu smiled. That's not very good, is it? What's not very good about it? I'm older than you, so it's only right for me to protect you and lead the way for them. The middle-aged man said with a piercingly cold aura, acting like an elder. Wanyan Shursan stopped Fengjiu, who was about to speak, and said with a smile, That's great. We're really lucky to have a perfected person leading the way for us. Hearing this, the middle-aged man seemed to be quite satisfied. He nodded slightly in response and walked in front to lead the way for them. Fengjiu glanced at Wanyan Shursan. She did not expect this guy to be so two-faced. That perfected person was not as strong as Wanyan Shursan, so naturally, he was not as strong as her. Yet, he had to lead the way. It felt a little like cheating. Even someone as thick-skinned as her felt a little embarrassed. The three of them walked forward, and along the way, they heard the cries of the insects. As the night deepened, they relied on the dim light above their heads to see the road ahead. As they got closer to Een Mountain, she felt that the aura in the air was getting colder and colder. She circulated the spiritual energy in her body to warm her body as she looked ahead. She saw faint spots of light floating in the dense forest in front of her, making whining sounds. The three of them entered the dense forest. The middle-aged man walking in front looked at the green lights and snorted, "These evildoers." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his horsetail whisk and released a wave of spiritual energy. Whoosh! One of the green lights was hit and instantly let out a mournful scream, while the others quickly scattered and fled. Hearing the scream that pierced through the night, the middle-aged man seemed a little embarrassed. He turned to look at Fengjiu and Wanyan Shursan. I didn't expect them to scream so loudly. Wanyan Shursan smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. This forest is so big, and the howling of the ghosts will sound from time to time. It won't attract attention. All right, let's continue. You and... Before he could finish his sentence, he seemed to have been caught in a trap. There was a rustling sound around him, and a huge net was put away. The middle-aged man was caught in the net and hung up. Wanyan Shursan and Fengjiu were startled. They looked at the middle-aged man who was dangling in the air and struggling. They asked, "Spiritual master, are you all right?" Looking at the serious-looking enlightened master being hung up and swinging on the ceiling, the two of them had a hard time holding back the laughter that was about to leap onto their faces. "I'm fine. Don't worry." That before he could finish speaking, he heard a sharp sound. The three of them looked in the direction of the sound and saw several sharp arrows shoot out from the forest. The arrows seemed to be connected to the net, and they all shot towards the middle-aged man who was hanging on the net. Chapter 3025. Wanyan Shursan and Fengjiu flew out at the same time. One of them blocked the sharp arrows that were shooting at the net, while the other condensed a blade of air to cut at the net. Bang! With a bang, the middle-aged man who was hanging in mid-air fell to the ground with the net. With a muffled groan, the middle-aged man quickly broke free from the net. "Are you all right?" The two came to his side and asked. Perhaps he felt a little embarrassed, so he coughed lightly and said, "I'm fine." As he patted his robe, he said, "I didn't expect there to be a trap here. I have to be careful." The two responded and smiled. They didn't say anything else, as it would only make him more embarrassed. The three of them continued to walk forward. This time, the middle-aged man walking in front was clearly more careful. It was as if he was concentrating all his energy. Feeling his tension, Fengjiu smiled and asked, "Jinren, I still don't know what your title is." Hearing this, the middle-aged man looked back at Fengjiu and said, "My surname is Chun and my name is Shan. In the sect, I'm called Jinren Chun. You can call me that." Along the way, he only knew that one of them was Fengjiu and the other was Wanyan Shursan. They were from the Blue Star Immortal Sect. However, looking at their strength, they weren't weak. He just didn't know what rank they were in the sect. "Jinren Chun, I heard that the Carefree sect's carefree swordsmanship is the most powerful. However, I saw that Jinren Chun use a horsetail whisk. Could it be that Jinren Chun didn't practice the carefree swordsmanship?" Fengjiu asked with a smile. "As long as you're a disciple of the Carefree sect, you can practice the carefree swordsmanship. I'm no exception. However, only the core disciples of the Carefree sect can practice the carefree swordsmanship. Therefore, there are very few core disciples who can practice the entire carefree swordsmanship. Those who can truly understand the essence of the carefree swordsmanship are even fewer." As he spoke, he looked at Fengjiu and asked, "What's wrong? Are you interested in the free and unfettered swordsmanship?" "Haha, a little." Fengjiu smiled. "It's useless even if you're interested. You're already a disciple of the Blue Star Immortal Sect. Otherwise, you could have joined my carefree sect." He turned around and looked at Fengjiu with a look that said, "You don't stand a chance." Fengjiu smiled and said, "Jinren Chun, be careful." She kindly reminded him. "What's in front?" "Hiss." When he turned around, he bumped into a tree branch. He felt a burning sensation on his forehead, causing him to gasp in pain. Wanyan Shursan couldn't help but laugh. "I say, Jinren Chun, why would you want to come down the mountain to gain experience?" He felt like he didn't really fit in with the outside world, and he didn't keep his guard up. It was very easy for such a person to be taken advantage of outside. He rubbed his forehead and said with a dark face, "Is it very funny? What's so funny?" He didn't say anything more to the two of them and walked forward with large strides. Wanyan Shursan walked beside Fengjiu and said with a smile, "He's really brave. After what we said, he still dared to follow us to the Yin Mountain. However, he doesn't keep his guard up. I really don't know how he survived until now." Chapter 3026. As the three of them walked forward, some ghosts gradually followed behind them. Some tried to pounce on them, while others emerged from the ground and hugged their feet tightly, as if they wanted to pull them into the ground. Fengjiu realized that the gore that her sister gave her, which could ward off evil spirits and make ghosts not dare to approach, was not effective here. Fortunately, she had Wanyan Shursan and Jinren Chun by her side. These two people's ability to deal with these ghosts was not weak. When they attacked, they scattered the souls of the ghosts, so that the ghosts that followed them did not dare to come close. Jinren Chun, who was walking in front, stopped and raised his hand to signal the two people behind him to stop. He lowered his voice and said, "The smell of blood in front is a bit heavy. You guys wait here for a while. I'll go check it out." Seeing him flash forward, Wanyan Shursan said to Fengjiu, "Let's go. We'll follow, in case something happens again." Fengjiu smiled and followed behind. The further they went, the heavier the smell of blood. When they saw Jinren stop there and did not move, they could not help but be surprised. They quickly walked forward and asked, "What's wrong?" They asked. Jinren Chen's face was pale, and there was anger in his eyes. He did not speak, but raised his hand and pointed forward. Fengjiu and Wanyan Shursan looked in the direction his finger was pointing. They saw a woman hanging upside down from a tree in front of them. Her body was covered in wounds, and blood dripped down from her body, dyeing a large area on the ground red. Less than 15 meters away, there was another woman hanging from a tree. Her hair was stained with blood and hung down vertically. Her face was pale and bloodless, and there was only blood oozing out of her 7 orifices. Her appearance in the dark forest was very frightening at first glance. These bastards! Daoist Chen's chest was filled with anger as he clenched his fists and cursed. He didn't go up to the 2 dead women, but he quickly went deeper into the forest. There he could faintly hear miserable screams begging for mercy. Fengjiu and Wanyan Shursan followed with ugly expressions. However, Wanyan Shursan followed Chunjiren, while Fengjiu walked towards the 2 naked women. He condensed 2 chi blades between his fingers and cut them, putting them down. Seeing that the 2 were no longer alive, she sighed softly and waved her sleeves, sending 2 clusters of flames towards the 2 corpses. Those who were already dead could only be melted by the flames and blown away by the wind. This was the best place for them to return to. If they were buried underground, they would most likely be eaten by ferocious beasts. They would end up dying without a complete corpse. As the flames burned, the light in the forest also lit up. A foul smell also drifted with the night wind until the 2 corpses turned into ashes and were blown away by the wind. She went deeper in and heard the sound of swords clashing. She quickened her pace and saw that there was still a cage of women trapped there. Fortunately, these women were still alive. Chapter 30:27. Clang. She stretched out her hand to pull Chun Jinren away and block the attack with her green-edged sword. The 2 swords collided with a crisp clang, and sparks flew from the blade. When the evil cultivator saw the green-edged sword in Fengjiu's hand, his cold eyes couldn't help but shrink. "Ghost Dr. Fengjiu." Hearing this, Fengjiu narrowed her eyes and pushed Daoist Master Chun to the side. She held her sword and went forward. As the tip of the sword spun, a sharp aura mixed with a powerful pressure enveloped down, causing the evil cultivator to retreat step by step in panic. Whoosh! A ray of green light streaked across the sky, and a sharp sword chi shot towards the immortal, venerable evil cultivator. The evil cultivator couldn't dodge in time and let out a muffled groan. His shoulder was hit by the chi, and the wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. His entire shoulder was almost cut off. Edited by Lifer, Fingerfox. Using the strength of a peak heavenly god to deal with an immortal venerable was like an adult beating a child. She spun the green-tipped sword in her hand and slashed out with sword chi, killing 2 evil cultivators who were pouncing on her. At the same time, she walked forward and stared at the evil cultivator who was wearing a green ghost mask. "You know me? I didn't know I was so famous here." Chunjinren was stunned. He knew that Fengjiu wasn't weak, but he didn't expect him to be so strong. His sword was so smooth and beautiful. His sword technique was not inferior to the carefree sex carefree sword technique. Moreover, the evil cultivator was an immortal venerable. How could he retreat in front of him without any resistance? Could it be that his strength was beyond the immortal venerable level? Also, the evil cultivator knew him. Ghost Dr. Fungio? Why was it Fungio? Wasn't he a disciple of the Blue Star Immortal sect? Without giving him time to think, the other evil cultivators attacked him. He wasn't a match for the two immortal venerables, but he could deal with the weaker ones. Immediately, he stopped thinking and focused on the battle. However, when he came to Wanyan Shursan's side, he couldn't help but look at him. This Wanyan Shursan could actually fight against a venerable immortal? So it turned out that he was the weakest among the three of them? Thinking about how he was the weakest among them, yet he had been walking in front of them the entire time. He even said that he would protect them and let them follow behind him. They couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. On the other side, Fungio cut the tendons of the evil cultivator's limbs with the tip of his sword, sealed his spiritual chi, and dragged him over. On the other side, Wanyan Shursan killed the other evil cultivator with a single strike. At the same time, he also killed the rest of the evil cultivators, leaving no one alive. Fungio glanced at the corpses on the ground and looked at him. Have you forgotten that we're here to look for someone? Didn't you leave one alive? You said that we should start with him, Wanyan Shursan said and glanced at the evil cultivator who was lying on the ground, unable to move. The evil cultivator's chi was sealed. Even if he wanted to self-destruct, he couldn't do it. His chin was chopped off, and saliva mixed with blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.